disappointed because, we just feel like we were, right there with them and played a hard series and had a lot of positivity around this team this year and thought that we could do something special.
We laughed, we cried, now it's over. Welcome back to another funereal edition of Enough Said. My name is Dan Barreiro, joined by Justin Gaard and a very devastated Lori Fisher. Proof being that you don't seem to be wearing any of the wild
I see
colors.
no wild
I
colors.
do look a little Vikings today, and we'll get to that in
Turning
a
the
second
page.
Rather
block.
funereal, I might add. I mean, if you were going to one, you've got the perfect
It is
attire.
sad, but we're going to try to stay upbeat. Maybe
We are?
get through the wild and then maybe move up with our emotions.
Good luck to you.
Can I say that?
Yeah, good luck.
You may have
Good
the
luck
wrong
on that
people
one.
for that, or at least
Yeah.
in one
We're going to
case,
make some
but-
memorable moments, Justin.
I'd love to. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm ready to go.
The Wild's playoff run is over, losing in St. Louis. The Blues go on to play the Colorado Avalanche. The Wild's performance last night was extremely frustrating. After a really fun and exciting season, it is a big bummer for the team and for all of us fans. Dan?
I really wanted this show to be a preview of you can't call it a winner-take-all Game 7 because it's the first round.
Yeah.
But a significant Game 7 for this club, because that would have meant they stole Game 6 on the road and you're back on home ice, and it was not to be. And I don't know that I can say, but if it, just for this play or that play, it wasn't that kind of game. And quite frankly, when we lost, it wasn't that kind of series. And so now we have the unusual situation here where we're left in this town with comparing forms of postseason dysfunction.
We're great at it.
Between the way the Wolves, the Timberwolves lost in 6, and the way the Wild lost in 6. And I got to be honest with you, I think I am more bugged by the way the Wild did. The Wolves, you could say, at least in 3 of the games, were up double digits going into the fourth quarter. I think they had like 50 combined 52-point leads in those games, and they made history finding a way to lose. That's not good. But at least you say, well, they're in the fray. In our 4 losses, the Minnesota Wild's 4 losses, they had one lead once by a single goal. So it felt like we weren't even in the game, in the mix, so to speak. And it leaves, I think, a lot of us sort of saying, we got had again. We got suckered by a tremendous regular season that masks some significant flaws that still need to get fixed if this team's going to go anywhere in the postseason.
Well, the Wild right now are what the Wolves were in the 2000s with KG, right? The late 90s. And to a lesser extent, the Twins, really since forever, but certainly in the 2000s with the Gardy year. Yeah, since they went up 2-1 in Game 5 with Kirill Kaprizov trying to have his Kirby Puckett climb on my back moment, they got outscored, what, 10-1? Something like that? I mean, it was absurd. The games, they absolutely shut down after that in Game 5. In terms of this series, I don't think it's breaking any news. We said it on the radio during the week that will they look back on Game 4 as a major missed opportunity where you've got St. Louis as the team who wasn't favored going into this series with Vegas odds, but had beaten you a million times in a row, right? Had to certainly feel good about how they were playing against you. You had them on the ropes. They were changing their goaltender, a guy who hadn't won in 9 or 10 postseason games.
And they were signing defensemen off the streets.
They had they played a couple defensemen that had like a career of 14 or 15 postseason starts, not grizzled veterans.
No.
That to me was the missed opportunity. They didn't no-show that game, but they didn't play well that game.
No, they didn't.
I know we're going to talk about the future. I think that, is in concert with the goaltender situation because as we've gone along, we said either way they go on the goaltender, there's really not a bad decision. That's a little bit more eloquent than saying it's an easy decision, as Dean Evison did, apparently much to the chagrin of Cam Talbot's wife, who tweeted about that after the game on Thursday night. But because they went down the road they did, now they have brought the goaltender issue into the future as well, and it's just one of those mini questions that they have to answer.
Special teams stink. And even the head coach confirmed it afterwards. That's going to have to be fixed. And here's a stat to think about for those who think I'm being too negative or you're being too negative or we're being too negative. If I have these numbers right, and you'll know if I'm wrong, guards, you'll correct me. In the history of the Minnesota Timberwolves, they've gotten out of round 1 once. The Minnesota Wild have gotten out of round 1 3 times in their history. That's combined 50-some years between these two programs. That's absurd. That's hard to think positive when that is your playoff legacy involving 2 sports that are about, more than anything else, what you do in the postseason.
Let's talk about the future. What should the Wild do in the offseason? You mentioned the goalie situation. What should they do there? And should they trade Kevin Fiala because he is a restricted free agent? Justin.
Go ahead, Puckhead.
Well, speaking of tough decisions, what do you do? Because I think before the postseason started, it was a no-brainer that you've got to find a way to keep Kevin Fiala.
Yeah.
I still lean that way. I think it is one series. Now, he didn't play very well in the postseason last year either, but he was awful in this playoff series. Not just not scoring, which is what he's paid to do, but the penalties, getting in the penalty box over and over again. He was a net negative basically every single game. But that's a tough call that they have to make. And to remind people, what makes it tricky is they basically got $13 million of dead money because of the Parise and Suter buyouts. You and I both agree that was the right thing to do, especially given some of the things we just heard this week about Ryan Suter and his impact on a number of different clubhouses over the years in the NHL. But the reality is, now that's the reality that you're living in. You've got $13 million. Everybody else can spend 82. You can basically spend 69. Something's got to give there. And the way Fiala played, I think, even made it even more difficult, if that makes sense. Because 2 weeks ago, it was a no-brainer. You probably trade Matt Dumba and you try to move on. But now I'm not so sure. 0
goals, 8 penalties.
Yeah.
To your point, that's again, you can live with maybe you're not going to score if he had some assists, but that combination
don't hurt the team that badly.
Is awful. I also, we're very we like Bill Guerin. We like how aggressive he's been. We like how take no prisoners his approach has been. But I think one area where he's vulnerable, we saw it again, is him dismissing the importance of adding a center.
30. And
the hockey people I trust still say this was revealed again in this series. You have to get better play down the middle. And I don't. The problem is,
I don't know
given
if it's realistic.
The salary cap situation, how do you do this? Oddly enough, this might have been their best chance to make a run.
Yep.
Compared to the next couple years when we know, as you say, the cap is going to seize them and paralyze and take away a lot of the moves, the more aggressive moves that I'm sure with more flexibility Guerin would like to make.
You're up, Marco Rossi. I mean, it's up to the kids at this point.
That's true.
The Matt Boldy's of the world. Another reason probably to keep Fiala is Boldy played really well, and it took some of the pressure off Kaprizov. But yeah, you're right. But they might be limited in what they can do there.
Enough said. The Twins lost twice to the Astros on Thursday at Target Field. They play Cleveland Guardians this weekend. Twins are in a tough spot, still missing a few of their key players due to injuries. They are first in their division, but does that matter?
Alibi maker Lori Fisher handing alibis to the club.
Cleveland doesn't have any coaches.
They are first in their division, but does that matter this early in the season?
Does what matter?
That they're first?
They're
it's better to be first than last, but no,
True.
in the grand scheme of things, not really.
It doesn't matter, and what we're already starting to see, they had a legitimate baseball team come in, admittedly a hot team, which needs to be factored in, and they got outmatched. They were not competitive in any of it was a 3-game series, I think, with the middle game had to be, extended into the next day. And also, guess what's happening? We've had people in this town basically saying, pitching staff's fine. Rotation is fine on the basis of some nice starts early. Guess what? Almost every one of those pitchers, Archer, Ryan, Bundy, even Winder, the kid who looked great in his first 2 starts, getting rocked lately, not getting through the 4th inning, giving up almost a run a game. So we still, I think, have serious reason to question whether you have a rotation that can keep you looking as good as they appear to look when they started this series with Houston, I think, with a record of 18-11.
Well, and Paddock, who we didn't mention there, is probably done for this season. He might be injured,
That's
right? Who had also pitched fairly well. He was one of those kind of bargain guys that they brought in this offseason. That is the whole thing with the Twins. It was the deal before the season. It was about the pitching. It remains the reason why they're struggling now. How about these tweets that I looked at this morning? Twins pitching isn't what was expected. It's better. I'm starting to believe in the Twins pitching. That was from like 9 days ago, both of those, the 5th and 6th of May, because that's how it looked back then. That was one of the big reasons why they were in the position that they were in, winning close games. Bullpen was also kind of piecing things together as well, but there was a reason why it was the biggest question mark before the season, is because a lot of these guys are either past their prime or haven't had one yet. They're just so uncertain. So not that no reason they can't turn it around, right? They still could. This is basically a bad 10-day stretch, but the signs aren't good when you're talking about back-to-back outings now for a couple of them and then some injuries that have cropped up as well. Lineup, I think, is the lineup. I think the lineup's fine. Buxton's obviously great when he plays. Correa was starting to heat up, but it's going to be all about the pitching, just like it was back when we were talking about him in Fort Myers.
Oakland, I think you could hit better in a big league game than Oakland. Their team batting average is 200. You know how miserably bad that is? And our pitchers look good against them, which is nice, but doesn't really tell the story about whether we really have a legitimate starting rotation.
Up next, the Vikings 2022 schedule is out.
Wow.
But is Dan excited about it?
You kidding me?
I'm sure.
It's all we have left,
Stay
man.
positive.
Yeah.
What else are we going to talk about the next 4 months?
Welcome back to Enough Said, football fans. The 2022 schedule is all set. The Vikings get 9 home games. They only had 8 last year. It will be a border battle in week 1 when the Vikings play the Packers at home. Then Minnesota will host the Patriots on Thanksgiving, the Giants on Christmas Eve, and the Packers on New Year's Day. So all of us need to plan our holidays accordingly. Dan?
100% true. It is remarkable, as a number of people have commented, that there's nothing pretentious or arrogant about pro football, NFL, doing what it does, which is to turn the schedule reveal into an event. They are justified in doing it.
Yeah.
They are the one sport that can get away with it, and we can roll our eyes, but the fact of the matter is people care. They are into it. I'm into it. And I don't know if it's the combination of it's pro football, which we care about more than any other sport, and that, again, it's 17 games.
Yep.
As opposed to, can you imagine the NBA trying to do a schedule reveal, or
No.
NHL?
No.
There's a lot more games, but it's sort of like each year ratcheted up more and more. I don't know where it ends, to be honest with you, but it's an actual sporting event.
And I love it.
I do too.
And it makes no sense why we love it, because the only thing we learn is the when and what time, basically. Which day and which time. We knew months ago who they were playing. Obviously, you have the division. We knew months ago where they were playing, because that's already been released in terms of home or road. Yeah, I have no explanation for it other than we love football. The other thing about it is a lot of people do like to travel. We know Vikings fans like to make the road trips, right? Whether it's to London, where they play the Saints, Lambeau, Chicago. This year, Miami is probably the most exotic one. Buffalo's a place we don't get to very often, so I know people want to make that trip. I think that's part of it, too, is then you can finally get your plans made and have something to look forward to. So, yeah, put me in the group, which usually I don't care about this stuff. I love schedule release day. I love the leaks. I love piecing it together. I love following people from all over the country that cover the other teams. It's ridiculous, but for whatever the reason, I love it. And by the way, I think the Vikings schedule is fairly favorable, especially early,
call it
if they can get over this Packers hump
soft.
week 1.
Well, there's 2 windows I like. Lions and Bears here, Saints in London.
Yeah.
Because that's a road game, but it's not, because it's in London, actually.
Yep.
Then later in the season, we got a window where we play the Jets, Lions, Colts, who are going to be legitimately good. They got their quarterback issue, but they're a good team. And the Giants.
Right.
I think of our last 6 games, we play 1 playoff team. Now, you know the X factor to me, though? I'm assuming we're going to sweep the Lions.
Yeah.
And the Lions soon, one of these years, one of these decades, are going to end up being more formidable, and so that might change it. And we're evaluating teams the way we always do on what they did most recently, which makes it a little bit sketchy to say, oh, this looks like a favorable schedule. But I'm with you. I think there's sections that look pretty inviting and soft, and even some of the national games tend to be at home as well. So,
including Thanksgiving for the first time ever, which I think is a cool wrinkle, too, to be able to host New England, who's not our New England from 5 or 6 years ago, but still a big name, and the fact that you can do it here on Thanksgiving is pretty cool.
And on Christmas Eve and on New Year's Day, you can watch the game on Fox 9.
We already have that.
That's outstanding.
That's good.
There you go.
That's good. With Tom Brady on the call?
Not yet. Fox Sports announced that Brady will be its lead analyst when he's done playing for the Buccaneers. 10 years, $375 million, the biggest contract in sports casting history. Brady tweeted he's excited, but a lot of unfinished business on the field, Dan.
It is. It's a stunning story in that if you go back to Brady, how long has he been in Tampa? 2 years?
Yes.
This will be his second year or third?
This will be his third.
I guess will be his third.
Yep.
You go back to Brady in New England when we all felt he was already had established himself as the best quarterback ever, even before he left for Tampa. He was viewed, though, in terms of interviews and media as boring, robotic.
Right.
Had nothing interesting to say. And Fox is making the big bet here that he's got plenty interesting to say. And frankly, post New England, we have seen a little of his personality come out. So my gut tells me, as absurd as this kind of financial commitment seems to me, that he's going to do well with it, because I think he almost has to, and you're going to see a lot more. He's going to surprise us, I guess, in some of the approaches that he indeed takes. But it's pretty much unprecedented. Do we have a precedent for a guy who's still playing getting this kind of money?
Not this kind of money. I mean, even people that weren't playing aren't getting this kind of money. That's what's changed in the last handful of years, which is interesting, because there is a philosophy of, you and I could do the game and people would probably watch, right?
Yeah, well, for a while.
But they'd complain about it.
They turn the sound down.
But they're still going to watch.
Yes.
Their eyes are still going to be fixated on it. So it's interesting that all these networks, really starting with Tony Romo and CBS, because I think that one jumped up to like almost 20 million right away. Now, ESPN's making the big play with Fox and with Buck and Aikman. That's what's fascinating to me, is these salaries have gone insane for these guys. Where is that going to end? Because there's been nobody better than Tom Brady on the football field. Can someone actually make more money than Tom Brady in this regard? I don't know. Has a new market been set?
Yeah.
But I think he'll be fine at it. I think he'll be good at it. I think the quarterbacks do add something that other position players can't, because we are so quarterback heavy and quarterback centric in this bit. But it's going to be fascinating to see. Now, when's it going to start? 2025 or 2035? Because I still think he wants to play. Maybe even for Miami next year. Who knows?
Is he ever going to? He's not going to ever play for us, is he?
Probably not.
I think it's unlikely.
Too cool.
Okay,
even though he did spend his summers in Browerville, as we know.
The NCAA's Board of Directors' new NIL guidelines released some new ones. NIL, for you that may not know, stands for name, image, and likeness. One of them includes not allowing boosters or companies to contact prospective athletes, a whole pay-to-play thing. It all seems a little confusing. There's some gray areas, Dan.
Well, Gaardsy's going to be key in this, because he's around the college game and he's around the University of Minnesota a lot. Let me offer this as a sort of a toss-up observation here. I think you can believe both of these things. You can believe that clearly the players were not properly compensated and something significant had to change, and also believe that this is going to be a disaster for the college games. When I say disaster, I mean I don't think it's going to be a healthy. The next few years are going to be very, very healthy, because I do think, and I know this, you hear this from coaches, they say it's kind of convenient, that it's becoming, because of these changes and everybody's in the transfer portal every 15 minutes,
right.
It's becoming way too easy, too crazy. Every time a coach looks sideways at you, you go, I'm done. I'm gone. And by the way, I'm going to get an extra, I don't know, $100,000 the next place I go. I don't think that's healthy for the sport. I don't have an answer.
Right.
And I don't disagree that the players were exploited, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're obligated to believe that these changes are in the end going to be viewed as healthy for the games themselves.
Yeah, well, NIL and transfer portal are separate, but definitely very, very related. Very related. We've seen players already transfer because another transfer came in and had a better NIL deal, and they said, I deserve to make more money. So you are going to see that. I agree with both of that. And the people that really lose out on this thing, specifically the transfer portal, are the fans, because what makes the college experience fun is you invest in a person's career. This goes back to even one and done with basketball. The reason college basketball is not as popular as it once was, when I was growing up, when you were growing up, you don't even get to know the players before they're already gone, which, again, they can go and be professional and do whatever they want, but the reality is people aren't as invested in college hoops because of that. Now it's with every sport. You get a guy, let's take Bucky Irving from the University of Minnesota, for example. Plays probably sooner than people thought he would, given the injuries they had, has a great year, gets people excited about it, and then decides to leave. That does hurt team loyalty, it hurts brand loyalty, but the NCAA, for this mess, they're the ones that created it by being so slow foot for the last 15, 20 years. I'm not saying all of this could have been avoided, but had you given a little bit more along the way, you wouldn't have this wild, wild west. But really, there are no rules anymore. There are no rules anymore.
Then now they're asking the U.S. Senate to help them out of the morass, which is an utter sign of complete.
Welcome back to Enough Said. It's time for the lightning round with Dan and Justin. First up, a disappointing decision for boys who want to play high school volleyball. The vote to make it a varsity sport failed earlier this week by just one vote, so it will remain a club sport. Dan.
I'm told I'm supposed to be outraged about this. I'm just not sure that I should be. Do we have great appetite for boys volleyball? I mean, something's got to give here. I don't know.
1,400 players in the state right now.
Yeah, I think in the Metro there is, it seems like. It's, from what I understand, it was a lot of the outstate votes that said we don't really have it. So it's going to happen at some point. It's only a matter of time. They got to figure out what season to do. It seemed like there's a lot of people on board here in the Metro. Seemed like
but
outstate.
Well, it's a state of Minnesota.
You're right.
So you got to have enough of an appetite for it.
The Lynx kicked off their season a week ago tonight, and now they're 0-3. Remember, they're shorthanded for several reasons. They play Chicago Saturday night at home, Justin.
Yeah, speaking of, we were talking about the St. Louis Blues defensemen and who they were looking for. The Lynx have basically been doing that as well, besides not holding open tryouts.
Yeah.
It's not good right now. I think they got a little bit too veteran. I think they got a little bit too injured. You know, players coming off injuries, including Angel McCautry, who they just waived or just bought out the other day. Trying to milk the last thing out of Sylvia Fowles' career. It has not worked out so far.
All this makes me feel nostalgic about, and I have to get past it, and they do, is the Maya Moore, Simone Augustus, Lindsay Whalen era. Because we took it for granted while it was happening.
Oh, I never took it for granted.
I shouldn't say that.
I'm a Minnesota fan. I didn't take that for granted.
But I think you sort of feel like, it's going to go on forever, and we'll just retool, and we ain't retooling.
Next up, Hopkins High School got a surprise visit from Rob Gronkowski and his brothers. They challenged the girls' basketball team to a 3-point competition, and it came down to a half-court shootout. Say that again, Dan.
First try or 15th?
I'm not sure. But the Gronk Nation Youth Foundation presented Hopkins with a $15,000 check for girls' athletics. I'm not sure what the connection was there, what his Minnesota connection is.
Oh, I know what the connection is.
What's that?
He likes us. He really likes us.
He had a great Super Bowl here,
right?
At US Bank Stadium. He took over the second half. Even though the Patriots lost to the Eagles, he was tremendous there. Yeah,
it's Gronk.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on.
You can't.
How fun for the kids.
Well, yeah, that's Gronk. That's what Gronk does. You can't hate on Gronk. I mean, one of the most unique characters and great players, by the way, when he's healthy, which hasn't been all the time. But trying to make a little difference, floating to Hopkins. Yeah, none of us really know what the connection was, how it happened. All of a sudden, he's at Hopkins High School playing basketball.
My sources say it was energizing for everybody. Seriously, at the school. Absolutely.
I'm sure.
Finally,
kids loved it. Coaches loved it. Everybody got into it.
The one non-sports related item tonight, the Social Security Administration released the top baby names for 2021 this week. Boys, Liam, Noah, and Oliver.
Okay.
Girls, Olivia, Emma, and Charlotte. So we're going to see a lot of them.
I've got no problems with those names.
But I looked it up. Daniel, because I'm assuming your name is really Daniel.
Right? It's Daniel, correct.
Placed 16th in 2021.
Wow.
Whoa.
Justin, 179th.
Yeah, it's over for me. It's over for the Justins.
And Lori, you think it's over for the Justins? Lori didn't even place in the top 1,000 and hasn't been in the top 1,000 since 2001 when it placed 952.
Oh my goodness.
Wow, 2001, my senior year.
So I think we should bring Lori back and Justin back, and Dan's doing just fine.
Yeah, well, Dan's a classic name.
It is a classic name.
Solid name.
What about
not very original, like Justin and Lori.
What about is Laura as obsolete as
Lauren might be one of the top ones. There's a lot of Laurens. That's a pretty one.
Yeah, Lauren.
Enough said.
There's a lot of Laurens.
It's over for the Justins. Yeah.
You're 179.
I tried to get a Justin Jr. about 7 years ago. That was quickly shot down.
No, that's a bad idea.
Quickly shot down.